your guitar sounds great. But when you play it in a mix, it sounds like crap. It doesn't even sound close to what you're hearing on your favorite records. Hey everybody, I'm Glenn Fricker. I've run a home studio since 1998, and this is not one of those I've been doing this forever so I know best kind of videos. This is one of those I failed in every conceivable way possible before finally learning what works kind of videos. And I'd like to share with you what I've learned. All right, I think it's worth mentioning. I've had the question about how we make the guitars work in a mix come up numerous times, and the latest one was from a guy named John Powers of 5487 who asked,
how about a video showing tricks on fitting the guitar in a mix? Your mixes are great, and as a guitar player, it took me years to learn the heaviest recorded tones are the combo of bass and guitar tracking, not just some cool gear.
That's absolutely true, man. Let's get into it. Despite what you might have read online, the problem is not your preamps, or your guitar amp for that matter, or your pickups, or even your converters. It might be your guitar cabinet speakers, but most likely it's the approach you're taking to recording guitar that's backwards. Now, what I'm gonna show you will work across the entire spectrum here. If you're using amp sims or live amps, it doesn't matter because it's the same idea and can be applied equally. Now, I'm sure most of you guys will find this utterly shocking, but guitar players tend to put themselves before everything. The worst example of this would be Metallica's And Justice for All, where James Hetfield said, "This is my tone, you guys will work around it." I don't think there's a better example out there of an album full of great songs that suffered because the mix was so badly balanced. Jason Newsted, anybody? Seriously though, there is a very good chance you're kind of inadvertently doing the same thing to your own music. What do we want? Crushing metal tones. When do we want them? After we've asked everybody's opinion on Facebook groups, because thinking for yourself is so early 2000s. The simple solution, the solution you're looking for, the way to make this easier for you is to start like this. And if you just said, but Glenn, that's the drums and bass mix. Yes, you're exactly right. Because guess what? We're not creating guitars for in your bedroom. We're not creating guitars for your sister's birthday party. We are creating guitars to sit in the context of an entire mix. That means with drums and bass. And the easiest way to dial in your sound for working with drums and bass is to dial it in while the drums and bass are playing. So when we're trying to dial the sound in, the last thing we want to do is hit the solo button. What we want to do is we want to listen to the guitars in the context of what's going on. Bring that a little forward. Bring the other instruments down if we want. But the idea isn't do this, because that's going to skew our perspective. We need to keep in mind that this has to work with the rest of the instruments, so we need to be listening to them constantly. Now, the Neve board has something called solo in front, and a lot of DAWs have that as well, whereas if you hit the solo button, it won't actually cut out all the instruments. What it will do is drop them down like 10 to 15 decibels, so you're still hearing the thing you want to work on in context. And the board does have that, but the manual was written by Satan himself because there's no way to decipher how to actually make it fucking work! So we listen to this, we want to get this balanced a little bit. And just have the guitar sitting in front. And here's the deal. I'm just using a single SM57 right now. We're going into the Bad Cat, and I've got the amp set up in the other room, but I've got something real important set up, and that's a Dynamount. And I want to show you guys something super important right now. Now, one of the easiest ways to change your guitar sound, I'm going to show you guys the key right here. This is the part so many guys miss. What we've got is the amp zeroed right now. Everything's just kind of at noon. I'm just going to kind of work in on the amount of gain I want. It sounds just a little bit flubby at the moment here. That's a great thing. I've got a fader here, and I can just play with this ever so slightly to get it kind of sit with everything going on. And as I said, I'm working with a reamp right now, and that's a big help. Now, if you don't have a reamp box, you can obviously play along to your drums and bass, but make sure you track those first before you really go dialing in your sound. What I've got here is I've got my Dynamount set up in the other room. And, you hear guitar players go on and on and on about pickups and just, stuff that really doesn't make a difference. I'm going to break my rule here, and I'm going to show you guys just to illustrate what's going on. Let's solo this up for a sec so we can hear this. Oh, what was that? Is the guitar sound changing? I love showing that to guitar players. I swear, it's like showing fire to cavemen for the first time. Whoa, that does that. Yes, it really does. So that's really where the rubber meets the road right there, is the speaker and the mic relationship to it. So what we're going to do is, since we've got the amp zeroed right now, we're going to play this in the context of a mix and just try and find the best place to put the mic. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to balance the top end on the guitar with what else is going on. So just by moving the mic, I'm making it a little bit brighter, and I'm seeing how far back I can pull the fader before things get lost. So it really does become a balance between the top end and the fader, because when you bring up the fader, you're bringing up the bottom end as well. Whereas if I move the mic, I'm basically increasing the top end and the overall apparentness in the mix. Okay, one of the big problems we can have here is when we're doing this for any length of time is that we can lose our perspective. So it's very important to take little rests every now and then and just basically come back with very fresh ears. Don't listen for this for an hour on end and expect to get great results. It's just not going to work that way. So listen for a couple seconds and take a break for a couple seconds, then come back and see what you get. Well, the first thing I can think of is like, damn, that really wants a tube screamer in front of it, because it just doesn't quite have that compression I'm looking for yet. But this, not bad tone-wise. Still fairly beefy. So let's go take a look at how we did with where the mic wound up. I'm just kind of curious about that. Hey guys, just want to give you guys a little reminder that more than half the people that watch the show aren't actually subscribed. I'm trying to build this thing up so I can give you better and better videos, and that means I can hire more editors and give people jobs. And for that to happen, I need your help. So do me a favor, if you find this video even remotely useful, hit the subscribe button. I'd very much appreciate it. All right, now that the mic's dialed in, I'm going to start tweaking out the amp a little bit. I have thrown a max on overdrive into this because I feel it just wasn't quite giving me the kind of gain that I was looking for. This should definitely do the thing. I'm just playing with it here. That's not bad. I'm just going to tweak out the amp a little bit and see where we go here. Okay, I think we've got something we can work with right there. Again, I'm just going to take a little break for a split second and listen to it again. Make sure it isn't too bright, isn't too dark, and it's kind of sitting exactly where I want it to. Let's pull it back a little bit. I am hearing a little bit of a wah, kind of a quacking sound, and I'm really wondering if that's a mic position thing or it's an EQ thing, something I'm going to look at later that's going to get knocked out of the mix a little further down. But right now, it does seem to have pretty good definition, and if we solo that, here's what we're getting. Yeah, that's pretty damn bright, and this is something which I probably wouldn't dial a guitar in like if I was sitting here just playing by myself. There's no way I'd dial in a guitar to be that bright. But again, in the context of a mix, when we pull that fader down just a little bit, we pan it over. Actually, I really like that panned over, so that worked out great. So down the center to kind of get it to blend with the mix, and then, pan it like you would a guitar for a full mix, and damn, that really worked out great because it really does sit in its own space now. Okay, that's real cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reamp both rhythm guitars right now with the overdrive, and then I'm going to do 2 tracks with the Northern Mauler. Let me drop those in right now. Okay, guys, point worth mentioning here, I really do want to bring this up, is we've got this working in the mix. You notice where my EQ is on the amp face itself. There's no real major EQing going on. It's all where you place the mic and how it's balanced with the mix. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, like, you just want to get the purest sound possible. It's really comes down to how much treble we've got, how much mids we've got, and how much gain is on the signal, and how far back we can pull this fader and still hear some definition on the guitars. Like I said, I think this is going to work out really cool. The guitars, again, might sound real thin on their own, but who cares? Nobody's going to hear them on their own. Okay, so I've got those tracked now, and I've still got, them kind of in front on the mix, and it sounded pretty good, especially with the Mauler tracks in place. Like, I'll bring those in and out and show you exactly what I mean. Mind you, that is 0 post EQ on the guitars at all. Like, none's going on there. I'm really liking the sound of that. Yeah, considering that's the fact that I've never really done a BV30 in a mix before. I used it on that Spectre Not a Strat there a few weeks ago, and a lot of you guys really like the tone on that. But in the context of mix, this is working out pretty well, actually. I'm gonna hit over here, and I'm gonna balance these 2 out. We got the Mauler here, and then we got the 57 for the regular. Just for the record, I love mixing on this freaking console. Thank you, Neve. You've made life so much easier. It's so you can rebalance stuff so quickly. Oh. Now you just switch back over to the analog end of things and pull the guitars down, bring the guitars in. For leads, I'm taking a different approach. I'm back on the Mojotone cab with the BV30H, but I've got a different microphone, and there is a reason for that. This is the Sennheiser E906, one of my favorite alternative guitar mics to the SM57. And the reason I want to use this instead of a 57 on the lead is simply because the mic is voiced differently and will occupy a different part of the overall spectrum than the 57 is, thereby making the sound of the lead guitar stand out just a little bit easier. So we don't have to worry about EQing it to get it to sit in place properly. It'll just work naturally. At least that's the hope anyway. Okay, we're back at the mix position. We got everything set up. We were ready to go here. We got everything dialed in. Let's just lay it down. And there we go. Just like that, we've got the lead tone in place. Once again, that is with no post-processing, EQ, or anything. That's just the raw mics. I've done the most important thing, and that is I went to bed. And I'm coming back the next morning here to listen to the guitars, because after listening to the song for a day, nonstop, over and over and over and over again, you lose your perspective. You have no idea if it sounds good or not. So let's just do a quick playback here and see what I left with last night. Now, here's the insane bit. Okay, I'm going to show you guys what those soloed guitars sound like all by themselves, because right now, this mix sounds huge. But if we solo these guitars up, not a lot of bottom end in there. A lot of tops, got that fried, HM2 thing going on. but everything just works. And the thing is, I've got almost no EQ going on at all. If I solo these guitars up one more time, and again, this is just by dialing in the tone in the context of a mix. Normally, I'll do what's called a Pultec low-end trick, and that's, boosting and cutting at 30 hertz, and then maybe adding on anywhere from 6 to 10K. If we listen to these guitars, I don't even have any boosting going on here. So here's the guitars raw. This is all the EQ going on. That's it. I'm doing the low end thing on the Tagler EQ-P1, and I'm not boosting any frequencies at all. I got that just by putting the mic in the right position. That's it. And that just sits great. That might be the best guitar mix I've ever done. Now, if you want to do this, you can do the same thing and get the same effect in software. I like using the TubeTech EQ. And again, I've got no boost going on here. I've just got the low-end attenuation thing going on. And it's not quite doing exactly what the Tagler does. Maybe it's not hitting it quite as hard as the Tagler does. I'm going to try dialing this in a little bit harder and see what I get. And we'll try in and out. Sew it up, punch it out. Yeah, that's not bad. It's not quite doing the exact same thing the Tagler is doing, but this is definitely a ballpark kind of thing. Once again, no boosting EQ anywhere. I didn't have anything major going on in terms of EQ-wise on the amp itself. I wasn't cranking anything up, just a couple little tweaks here and there. But the most important thing was I worked it with the Dynamount and got it dialed in perfectly. If you don't have a Dynamount, that's not a problem. I mean, just bring a friend over while you're setting up your guitar tone and get him to shift the mic around until you guys find something you like. Just make sure he wears hearing protection. And if you're an amp sim guy, that's super easy to do as well. Zero your amp or put everything at noon and just move your virtual mics around until you find the sound you're looking for. You get far better results that way than by fucking around with an equalizer and trying to rescue a bad guitar sound. Get it right at the source, you're going to have much better results. The best solutions to complex problems tend to be very simple. As guitar players, we overthink everything. For example, I did an escape room in Manila, Philippines with all these amazing musicians last year, and we failed horribly because we thought the solution was way more complex than it really was. Same thing applies here. If you want your guitars to work in a mix, then dial them in while listening to the mix. It's really that simple, because if you do that, you'll have to add less processing during the final mix and your tracks will work together better. Now, I noticed something interesting. While switching out the Mojotone versus the Jesus, it became apparent just how small a part of those tracks are to the overall sonic picture. Because the other thing to keep in mind is that bass is a gigantic part of the overall sound, because that's where the heaviness is coming from. Justice for all, anybody? And if you want to get that crushing bass tone, you can get it easily with Element Bass from Spectre Digital. Ultimately, if you're looking to get a killer sounding guitar recording, try running it with the mix, play along to what you've already got. You'll probably have much better results, and you aren't going to have to EQ the living crap out of your amp or anything else for that matter. All you got to do is play around with your mic position, be it in real life or a virtual mic position on an amp sim. Either way is going to work. Hope you found the video useful, guys. I'll see you next time.
Well, that's fine if you like square wave distortion, but you'll never hear the tone wood with that much gain.